Jujutsu Kaisen is back again this week for another addition to this Shibuya arc, and this segment right here is the finale to this crazy run of episodes we've been watching for the past couple months. It feels like this arc was much longer than the 15 episodes or so that was put out, because so many events took place in such a short time frame, with of course Gojo's sealing, the whole Sukuna rampage, and everything else that took place. But after all this chaos, Yuji ended up getting his get back last episode and beat Mahito's ass, the biggest villain in JJK up until this point. Mahito got whooped by Yuji after terrorizing him and the sorceress for so long, and after this massive battle that took pretty much everything from Yuji and the others to win, Gege Akutame wasn't done with the chaos. He still had some more fuel to add to the fire, and even though Yuji finally took out his biggest op, he couldn't let him enjoy that moment for too long. Literally seconds after defeating Mahito, both in battle and mentally, this torn up Yuji is thrown right back into the deep end with another battle to fight. Insane stuff, but pretty consistent with how the arc's been paced and structured so far. There is always another obstacle there for the sorceress to deal with, and after defeating Mahito, the obstacle this time was none other than Geto himself. The fake Geto, of course, and the person in his body, which is literally just a brain, obviously has another name, but it's yet to be revealed in the anime, so to not spoil, I'ma just call him Geto as the anime does. This fake Geto made his return after so damn long. I remember reading Shibuya and wondering where bro was and what he was planning, but after that massive bombshell he caused the sorceress at the start of Shibuya, he was finally back in the mix. Gege decided this is the perfect time for the mastermind of JJK to make his return, and of course it had to be in the most vulnerable moment for the sorcerers. Geto caused all this death, destruction, and massive L's for the sorcerers, with obviously Gojo's sealing, which was the catalyst for everything going downhill, and major events like Sukuna's run within Shibuya and Toji's surprise return, then disappeared for the entire arc and was pretty much nowhere to be seen, only to come back in the most dire moment when the sorcerers and especially Yuji is on their last legs. My man Yuji is out here with his cheeks split open, still chasing Mahito to make sure he don't escape, but once he clocked on to who this person with Mahito is and the fact that he's the enemy that sealed Gojo, Yuji was back on timing and ready to fight for his mentor, but damn, he got folded. This fake Geto had that energy about him to which you could tell Yuji wouldn't do much against him, especially in the state that he's in at the moment, but bro ended up getting destroyed. Geto had something ready for Yuji, and after yapping a bit about his technique, Yuji was thrown onto the ground and was completely shut down. Geto, just as he says, had multiple moves at his disposal with that cursed spirit manipulation technique, and could even combine them together to improve the effectiveness of it, which Yuji couldn't hack in the slightest. This short little scrap was purely intended to show the power difference between these two, and that what Yuji is currently fighting is no joke. I know it's right after a massive fight against Mahito, but it's clear that Geto is on that different tier and did some crazy damage to Yuji here. In a couple moves, bro had him looking worse than him after the Choso fight, and this frame of him beat up was wild to see. It's one of my personal favorite panels from the manga, and it's crazy that Geto did this practically effortlessly. This showcase of power was crazy, but the moment following him toying with Yuji was the highlight of this little scrap here. Whilst Geto was yapping away at Yuji and beating him up, Mahito used this chance to sneak attack bro, as he knew this Geto wasn't gonna save him, but he failed miserably. Geto of course dodged and ended up sealing him into that little board so he could absorb him, and despite being a satisfying moment, seeing Mahito, who caused all this pain and suffering, finally get dealt with, the fact that Geto effortlessly took out the biggest villain in the story and even gobbled him up taking his abilities was straight up disturbing. Yuji's reaction to this said it all, and even though Mahito had a generational run taking Yuji to his absolute limits, there are way bigger fish to deal with, and after this little segment with Geto and what we know with characters like Sukuna, the events surrounding the next arc are about to be insane and even crazier than what we've seen from this Shibuya incident, which has already been a disaster. But after Geto thwarted that ball thing with a smile on his face, mind you, which if you forgot, the real Geto described to be swallowing a rag wiped with puke and stuff, Yuji finally got the backup he needed. The students from Kyoto High made it to the battle, and despite doing pretty much nothing against Geto, the way they pulled up was kinda cool, not gonna lie. Nishimiya tracked Geto down from the sky for Kamo to blaze him up with some arrows, and you had Mai sitting miles away attempting to quickscope bro with a sniper. And even Miwa had a little moment as well, and out of all these lot, the anime does a good job in giving you faith that she would be the one to get the better of Geto here and actually hit an attack, but nope, bro caught her sword after all that hype and build up and used his ult right in front of her. There was so many references to Bleach in this episode, and as a fan of both manga, it was dope to see. Gege takes mad inspiration from Bleach throughout JJK, but it was clear as day in this final segment. The whole episode felt like the end of Soul Society when Aizen pulled up, who in this case is Geto, and little things like Yuji torn up on the ground and this scene with Miwa where Geto stops the sword with his hand after that hyped build up is some cool reference references to moments with Ichigo, and with Miwa, they of course end up saving her just barely, and that entire scene demonstrated perfectly the power difference in this situation, and if it wasn't for a miracle simple domain from Kusakabe of all people, she would have been done right then and there. Mekamaru was spitting when he told Miwa and the other Kyoto students to stay out of Shibuya because literally none of them was ready for the smoke and could have easily gotten wiped out. With Mekamaru gone, Todo was hard carrying this school, but after they pulled up and did their thing, another familiar face joins the battle, and after that PTSD Yuji inflicted on him, Choso was back standing on business. We got some context as to why he was bugging out after his fight with Yuji, because as we saw, even though he won the fight, it left him in complete shambles, but somehow through a side effect of his curse technique, he realized that he and Yuji have a connection just like him and his other brothers, which meant that Yuji and him was somehow related. It's a crazy twist which makes everything beforehand with the dinner scene make sense, and after piecing everything together, Choso was pissed and ready to scrap the person who caused him to nearly kill his own brother Yuji, and that evil mastermind was obviously Geto himself, the man in the background who's pulling all the strings and manipulating everything he can get his hands on. Choso basically ended up becoming an ally for the sorcerers here, mainly for the protection of Yuji, who he proclaims to be his brother, and after so many failed attempts to jump this Geto guy, Choso kinda tested him a bit. His blood manipulation is strong as hell as we know, and he was letting it rip against Geto. His curse technique is super versatile, so he could stick it to him from any range, whether it be up close or from a distance, but too bad none of his attempts did much, and he ended up getting worked by Geto. Bro was dodging and countering basically everything, and although he wasn't serious, his subordinate Uraume was on smoke. At this point in JJK, we don't know much about this character, but from that move where Uraume throws the entire battlefield, and also the fact that they're Sukuna's ally and someone he's clearly in cahoots with, you can obviously tell this person's strong as hell, and just like Geto, Uraume is on a whole nother level compared to these lot. Yuji ended up flying in to save his boy Choso, but he obviously ain't do much to help him in the end, because Uraume went all in to basically wipe out everyone but Yuji, and it almost succeeded if not for Yuki, who was the girl that the real Geto was talking to back in Hidden Inventory, and she made a clutch appearance here to save these guys from dying to some icicles. It would have been a tragic way to go out, but she came through at the perfect time to save these lot from getting folded. This episode was cool because it was filled with action and some interesting twists in the story, but the next episode, which is the finale, is where we're truly going to get into it with the future events for the story and what this madman actually has planning. As described, he's the most evil sorcerer in the story, so you already know he's got something devious cooking up for us in the next arc. As someone who's caught up with the manga, I can say that the following arc is even more hype and exciting than this one, so when season 3 drops, just know you're getting some gas that somehow surpasses the heights of Shibuya. This was another great episode of JJK, and it's sad that this arc is coming to an end, but hopefully they end it off with a bang. I appreciate everyone who's made it this far into the vid, and if you enjoyed, drop me a like and subscription as it helps a ton. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you in my next one. Peace.